Two people die in the same mansion, days apart. The county calls one an accident, the other a suicide, closes both files, and moves on. No charges, no drama, case closed. It happened July 11th, 2011 in Coronado, California, inside the century-old Spreckels Mansion. 7 years later, a civil jury looks at that same house, those same two bodies, and orders someone to pay millions for a death the state insists was nobody's fault but her own. Somebody here is wrong. 6 years old, and that's the whole story so far. A boy going over a second-floor railing, face first, landing hard enough to break bones in his spine and his skull. No one saw a struggle. No one heard a scream. Just a fall, in a house built for parties, not funerals. 2 days later, still in his hospital bed and still fighting, the boy has a new companion in tragedy. Beneath the same balcony that overlooked his fall, his father's girlfriend is found hanging, dead before anyone reaches her. 2 days later. 3 days after that, the boy loses his fight too. Or 5 days after the fall, the boy loses his fight too. 2 deaths in one house, 3 days apart, and only 2 people were ever inside that mansion to see how the first one started. The man whose house this technically was never lived there. Jonah Shacknai just paid for it, along with everything else, as CEO of a pharmaceutical company called Medicis, a job that in 2010 put him near the very top of Arizona's highest-paid executives. Money like that buys mansions, lawyers, and privacy. It does not, as it turns out, buy answers. Her name finally, Rebecca Zahau. By July of 2011, she had shed almost everything that once anchored her. She'd started seeing Jonah back in 2008, while still married to somebody else. That marriage ended that February. Her job vanished the winter before. She just quit. 2 years earlier, in Phoenix, she'd pleaded guilty to walking out of a Macy's with stolen jewelry. So the woman at the center of this wasn't just a girlfriend. She was unemployed, unmarried, and already had a record. The jewelry she pleaded guilty to taking off that counter came to about $1,000, not enough to ruin a life on its own. Enough, apparently, to follow her into every account of what came next. Rebecca hadn't always been on this side of tragedy. Born in Burma in 1979, she'd trained as an ophthalmic technician, the kind of steady, unglamorous job you build a normal life around. By the summer of 2011, that life was gone, replaced by somebody else's mansion and somebody else's money. Which brings us back to that boy, and that railing, and the fact that whatever happened in that room belongs to exactly 2 accounts. One is Rebecca's own statement. She says she was in the bathroom when it happened. The other belongs to her sister Zena, the one who dialed 911. No nanny, no security footage, no third witness to check either story against. Just a woman with nothing left to lose, and a teenager holding the only version of the truth anyone would ever get. Zena wasn't some distant relative pulled in later. She was staying under the same roof, present for the fall and present for the fallout, expected somehow to carry a story too big for either of them. That's the version investigators would eventually accept. But before anyone had time to question it, the house wasn't done. 2 days after Max's fall, Rebecca's body is found, hanging beneath the mansion's own balcony. First responders pronounced her dead on the spot. No note left behind that anyone made public. Just a woman, a rope, and a question that would take 7 years and a jury to even get asked out loud. Investigators took their time answering it. 2 weeks after Max died, on July 26th, they closed his file. An accident, he simply tripped. 5 weeks after that, Sheriff Bill Gore stood in front of cameras and closed hers too. Suicide, he said, plain and final. Neither death, in the county's telling, involved another person's hand. The Zahau family wasn't buying plain and final. In 2013, they went to civil court and put a number on their disbelief, spread across a list of defendants long enough to look like a fishing expedition. Over time, that list shrank to one name, and it wasn't a stranger, a landlord, or a hired hand. It was blood, Jonah's own brother, Adam Shacknai, standing alone where a whole family's grief had landed. A criminal court needs proof beyond a reasonable doubt, the bar that let both rulings stand. Civil court just needs the scales to tip. More likely than not, no reasonable doubt required. So a jury can decide, on that same evidence, that Adam Shacknai bears responsibility for Rebecca's death, without any prosecutor ever charging him with a crime. The scales tipped. In April of 2018, the jury delivered its answer: Adam Shacknai liable for Rebecca's death. Not the full ask, barely half that, but handed to the family that refused to let this go. 12 ordinary people, sitting through every exhibit the county had, said someone else was responsible. Same house, same rope, same body, and now 2 verdicts standing on opposite sides of it. The sheriff, working under the harder standard, still calls it hers alone. 12 jurors, working under the easier one, say someone else's hands were involved. Only one of those stories can be true, and nobody in Coronado has explained which. Adam Shacknai isn't reaching for a checkbook. He's reaching for an appeal, and the argument isn't just that the jury got the facts wrong. It's that the jury itself was broken, tainted, unfit to decide anything at all. His lawyers didn't stop at the verdict was wrong. They claimed specific jurors had lied during selection, hidden connections to the case, and tainted the panel before a single exhibit was even shown. An argument that, if it held, would erase the judgment without ever touching what actually happened on that balcony. The sheriff's office didn't wait for the appeal to play out. Within weeks, it pulled its own files back open, resubmitted the evidence to the county medical examiner, as if a jury of 12 had never spoken. 7 years, 1 jury verdict, and 1 dead serious reconsideration later, the chief medical examiner reached the exact same conclusion, in language that left no room for a second opinion. Adam Shacknai isn't waiting quietly for that appeal to grind through the courts. He takes his case somewhere the sheriff's office never has to answer to: national television. Sitting across from Dateline NBC, with a jury's verdict still hanging over his name, he offers 4 words for the cameras. Not an alibi, not new evidence, just a grievance. The appeal never gets its ruling. In February of 2019, before any judge weighs in, the Zahau family simply stops fighting. They take a fraction of what those 12 strangers gave them, and in exchange, the county erases the verdict entirely, wiped from the record. Legally, it never happened. The system Adam complained about broke his way. No court ever ruled on whether that jury was compromised, because the questions stopped mattering the moment the check cleared. Everyone kept the finding they wanted. The sheriff kept his suicide. Adam kept his freedom and most of his money. Nobody kept Rebecca, and nobody kept the boy who fell first. What could settle this outright is almost embarrassingly specific. Bruising, ligature marks, anything on Rebecca's body that a rope tied by her own hands wouldn't produce. That evidence either exists in a file somewhere in San Diego County, or it never did. Either way, it has never once been shown to the public that spent 7 years arguing about her. Across town, in a hospital room nobody was arguing about yet, the official story for Max never got more specific than he tripped. No one has ever explained the mechanics of a 6-year-old clearing a railing face first, on his own, in a house with no witnesses but the woman who'd be dead within 48 hours. Look at what that number actually buys. Not innocence. The sheriff already had that on paper. Not guilt. The jury already had that too. What it buys is silence on both, a way to stop paying lawyers to relitigate a house nobody can fully explain. That's not justice. That's risk management, dressed up in a case number. The house never confessed. It didn't have to. Rebecca Zahau's death is still on paper her own doing. Max Shacknai's is still an accident nobody can quite describe. The case closed years ago. The question underneath it never did. Somewhere else, another mansion, another staircase, another ruling nobody believed. That one's next.